Initially, this documentary was intended to pay tribute to Darryl Houston, so I had to include Aretha Franklin in it, because she played an important role in Darryl Houston's music career. However, I didn't know that Aretha Franklin's transition would occur in close proximity to Darryl's death. Ironically, this documentary is also a special tribute to her. God works in mysterious ways. Detroit's own Maestro, Darryl Houston, born to play. In tribute to Darryl Houston's music legacy, Born to Play, through friends and acquaintances of Darryl, takes a minuscule look at Darryl's life from the early stages of his musical growth to the peak of his music career. As a kid, Darryl's dream was to become a doctor, but God had other plans for him. In the early days of his musical journey, Darryl Houston took music lessons at the Ray Daniels House of Music. Besides presiding over one of the most successful music schools in the city of Detroit, Ray Daniels had founded and organized many large and great singing choirs. Ray Daniels and the Wings of Harmony was his first community choir. Ray Daniels' Vocaliers was his second community choir. Johnny O'Neill was the organist and Winston Poe was the assistant director. Ray Daniels and the Voices of Christ was his third community choir. The organist for the Voices of Christ was Glenn Jordan. Derek Waller served in the capacity as a pianist.
King Jesus is my captain. For me, King Jesus, Lord, is my captain.
Ray Daniels also had the privilege of accompanying the legendary gospel singer Mahalia Jackson in Saginaw, Michigan at a special concert held in the Saginaw Auditorium. Ray Daniels accompanied her on the organ with her musician Mildred Falls on the piano. Ray was 17 years old at that time.
How did I make it over? You know my soul back in wonder. How did I make it over? King Jesus.
Ray Daniels, president and overseer of Ray Daniels House of Music, shares his memories on serving as a teacher and mentor to his young protege, Darryl Houston.
As a student, Darryl would come every Thursday. His father would bring him every Thursday. They would never be late. It didn't rain enough. It wasn't enough snow. It wasn't too hot for him to stop coming. Darryl was very consistent with his lessons, and that's the reason why he learned as well as he did, because he was very serious about his lessons. Every Thursday at 5 o'clock, Mr. Houston would knock on my door with little Darryl Houston, and we had a lot of fun. It was just a joy in teaching him, because he was a student that learned real quick. Once you show him something, he got it. You know, I didn't have to tell him to practice. He wanted to practice. He loved music. And he got to the point that I would write out a transcript for him one way, he would come back and play it for me, and then he would embellish it. He would do a lot of improvising on it. So he was very creative. I saw that trait in him, and I knew then that he was destined for great success.
Darryl Houston, in terms of his phenomenal gospel music ability, is highly ranked among the company of other outstanding Ray Daniels House of Music protégés. To name a few, Derek Starks, who became a minister of music, singer and music composer, and Johnny O'Neill, who became a famous jazz pianist, singer, and music composer. Johnny O'Neill, also as an actor, played a role as the legendary jazz pianist Art Tatum in the movie Ray, which featured Jamie Foxx, who played the leading role as Ray Charles. Johnny delivered a rousing performance. He was also selected for this role due to his great music ability. In this photo, Darryl Houston and Johnny O'Neill received special music awards for their brilliant performances in the student recitals. They both captivated the audiences with their performances. In this photo, Johnny O'Neill is standing to the far left, and Darryl is posing to the far right. Gospel and R&B musician Van Cephas is kneeling on the ground. Unfortunately, Van Cephas, due to financial difficulties, committed self-suicide. Van's death stunned the entertainment world. Van was behind in paying property taxes, and as a result he lost his home. However, this had devastated him. During his crisis, he should have turned to God for help. His suicidal death didn't have to happen. It should remind us of the importance of seeking God when we are confronted with problems in life. For God is a burden bearer and problem solver. Later, Darryl Houston and Johnny O'Neill started successful music careers in performing for well-renowned secular artists. Johnny O'Neill's fame as a jazz artist grew when he played for legendary jazz greats such as Ray Brown and Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. Just as Johnny O'Neill, Darryl Houston had musical success with the company and secular artists. Darryl Houston's popularity as a musician increased when he started to play for Aretha Franklin, who is known as the Queen of Soul.
Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around.
It is noteworthy that Aretha Franklin Like her father, was a champion of social justice for blacks. She occasionally gave to support civil rights causes.
Keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let no jailhouse turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna.
Aretha's father was the famous Reverend Clarence Franklin. Reverend Franklin pastored the New Bethel Church in Detroit. In addition to his ministry, he became involved in the civil rights movement and fought for blacks against racial injustices. Reverend Clarence Franklin was known as the man with the billion-dollar voice. He could preach, but also could sing. Aretha inherited her rich, soulful voice from her father. Her father, the Reverend Clarence Franklin, was one of the first ministers to record sermons on albums. Among his powerful sermons was "The Eagle Stirreth Its Nest."
God was stirring the nest.
Reverend Franklin played an important role in his daughter's music career. He encouraged Aretha Franklin in her musical endeavors. Because of her father, Aretha was motivated to sing, and she acquired all the necessary tools to sing from her father. Because of Aretha Franklin's superb vocal skills, she needed a musician who could match her soulful voice on the instrument and blend in. Darryl Houston was the man. His funky style of playing fitted in with Aretha Franklin's voice. They were a powerful team. As a musician for Aretha Franklin, Darryl Houston was fortunate to play for presidents at the White House, important sport events, and television shows.
Yeah.
Gospel music had a very profound influence on both Darryl Houston's and Aretha Franklin's performances. As a result of their deep-seated traditional gospel music roots, they occasionally delivered high-spirited, jubilant performances, as exhibited in this NBC television performance. Enough can't be said about the importance of gospel music to musicians and singers. Gospel music has always played a prominent role in fostering the talent of secular artists. Just as Aretha Franklin, Patti LaBelle, and Sam Cooke were other well-renowned artists whose music was impacted by gospel music.
Wonderful, what a soul, wonderful, he's wonderful.
Whoa, there was a woman in the Bible days. She had been sick so very long. But she heard my Jesus was passing by, so she joined the gathering throng. And while she was pushing her way through, someone asked her, "What are you trying to do?" She said, "If I could just touch the hem of his garment, I know I'll be made whole." She cried,
When he was a teenager, Sam Cooke was a member of the teen highway gospel group that performed in churches. Later in the 50s, he joined the Soul Stirrers. The Soul Stirrers was a young group which started in the mid-20s. Sam Cooke and other artists acquired their soul and drive from gospel music. Gospel music was a great source of inspiration for so many secular artists.
This is a man. But it wouldn't be nothing without a woman out there. Said one more time, this is a man's world. This is a man's world. But it wouldn't be nothing without a woman there. Yeah. See?
Unfortunately, while some artists turned away from gospel music to embrace a new art form of music, Aretha Franklin and Darryl Houston never forgot their gospel music roots. For instance, Aretha Franklin sponsored free church concerts and gave away food to the community, whereas Darryl Houston remained a full-time committed church organist.
It was built by Jesus on high, and there we never shall die.
Aretha Franklin's early influences in gospel music were derived from singing for her father's ministry. However, Darryl Houston was mainly impacted by gospel music through playing for churches, in particular the St. James Baptist Church. Reverend Charles Nix pastored the St. James Baptist Church. He was a great traditional gospel organist, whose music had a tremendous influence on Darryl's organ playing. With a little contemporary flavor, Darryl Houston patterned his style of playing after Reverend Charles Nix. As a musician for St. James Baptist Church, Darryl Houston was really able to develop his churchy traditional sound. Darryl's organ virtuoso, his musical excellence, was displayed in the St. James Choir opening song, The Lord's Prayer. Darryl's outstanding technical music ability added to the rich harmonious sound of the melodious St. James Choir voices in The Lord's Prayer. Preceding the Lord's Prayer was an upbeat temple congregational song, in which Darryl's funky churchy traditional sound would rock the church and bring the house down.
Officials expected an overflow crowd, and they were prepared. An estimated 5,000 people packed the Greater Grace Temple in northwest Detroit to say farewell to Reverend Charles Nix Jr., organist, singer, songwriter, and minister.
After the death of Reverend Charles Nix, someone had to step up and carry on the St. James music tradition, and to keep the legacy of St. James music alive. 3 individuals were gifted musically to do this. They were the Reverend Bishop Andre Woods, Darryl Houston, and Sidney Holmes. All 3 of these musicians played for St. James Baptist Church. Because of Darryl's playing, he was able to carry the torch when Charles Nix died. Charles Nix's musical influence can be heard in his playing of several old-time St. James favorite songs, especially Hold Back the Night and Oh Give Thanks. Darryl Houston's ability to play like the Reverend Charles Nix will always be admired for those of the listening audience who were attracted to that traditional gospel churchy sound. In addition to his ability to play gospel music, Darryl Houston was adored by fellow musicians and music educators in Detroit for his music expertise. In this last part of Born to Play, which is entitled Darryl Houston, the man behind the music, we will take a look at Darryl Houston, who is also celebrated as a person, a teacher, and as a connoisseur of his craft. Several friends and acquaintances reminisced about what Darryl Houston meant to them and to their music. Ray Daniels talks about his close relationship with Darryl Houston.
Darryl and I would be on the telephone and we would talk 2 and 3 hours, and whenever he had any type of challenge of life, he would always call me and we would talk about different things, and I would give him my opinion and he'd give me his opinion, and he did whatever he wanted to do. But we discussed a lot of things in life. Darryl was a person, he experienced success as an early age. He was a child protege. And a lot of times when you experience success so young, you can't always handle it. And sometimes it can get out of hand. And so sometimes, Darryl Houston, if you said that Darryl Houston was your friend, he would make you prove it by some of the things that he would say or do. But sometimes we will have our little fallouts. But 2 or 3 weeks, he called me right back later, act like nothing happened, and we got along fine. But I told Darryl, the way up is down. Always humble yourself. You want to make people like you. It's not always about how good you can play, but people want to know, do you have a genuine love for them? And so I talked to Darryl, love your friends and love your fans. Darryl was a person, he loved parties and things like that. So I would have my musician parties for all my students and all of my musical colleagues. We would come in back at my house and we would have big barbecue cookouts, and we would all play for one another. And Darryl played. A lot of people just loved his playing, and I loved his playing. And I would introduce Darryl to some of my younger proteges that were coming up, and Darryl just loved meeting young musicians. They all loved him because he had a nice personality. He made them feel, that he talked to them and tried to inspire them and tried to tell them how to climb the golden ladder of success. So with Darryl Houston, we're going to miss Darryl. We're going to miss him. The city of Detroit is going to miss him. A lot of people have a lot of negative comments about Darryl, but Darryl's the kind of person you would really have to understand. You would really have to know Darryl to understand him. Now, if you didn't know him, then you're not going to understand him. Darryl was the kind of person, he was a very genuine friend. If he liked you, he'll let it be known. And if he didn't care that much about you, he did not associate with you. But Darryl was a fine, outstanding person. He was the kind of musician that had a respect for perfection. He wanted everything done the right way and in order. So we're saying to the family of Darryl Houston, you have our sympathy. We love Darryl, and the city of Detroit loved him.
Next, Glenn Jordan and distinguished musicians will share their memories on Darryl Houston. Glenn is a recent 2017 recipient of a Master of Education degree. He also has a double major in history and math. In addition, Glenn is a successful music teacher and vice president at the Ray Daniels House of Music. He has taught many great students how to play organ, piano, and drums throughout the metropolitan area of Detroit and abroad. Glenn Jordan and Kenneth Alexander mentioned Darryl Houston as a music motivator.
Hello everyone, my name is Glenn Jordan. I am the Vice President at the Ray Daniels School of Music. I am also on the staff as a music teacher at the Ray Daniels School of Music. I did not know Darryl Houston personally. I did not have a binding relationship with him. I was only an acquaintance of his. And I ran across Darryl during the early 1980s. And this is when I was coming up as a young musician. I wasn't yet fully developed. And Darryl was so kind. He would volunteer his services freely and come over to our music school. This is when our music school was on the north end. Right now, it's on the west side. But he would come over to the music school, and I fully enjoyed those musical moments that we had. Darryl would get on that organ, and he would wear that organ out. He put the P in playing. And when he would finish, I was in awe. His playing was astonishing. His playing had captured the very essence of that gospel soul. Darryl Houston's playing had all of the elements, all of the attributes in it for him to be an outstanding gospel musician. Another outstanding trait that I recognize about Darryl Houston's music is that he was well-rounded. Not only did he play by ear, but Darryl could also read music. And therefore, he should serve as an exemplary role model for younger musicians coming up. Just don't be content with learning how to play by ear. Know how to play by notes. Read music. Learn all kinds of styles of music, all genres of music, because this will increase your music market value. And as an end result of that, more doors of opportunity can be opened up to you musically. So Darryl Houston is going to be greatly missed, for he contributed so much to the gospel music circuit right here in the city of Detroit. So Darryl, may your soul rest in peace. And my condolences goes out to the family during your time of bereavement.
Good afternoon. I'm Kenny Alexander. I'm just here to say a few words about Darryl Houston. We were actually not personal friends, but I know Darryl to have been a phenomenal musician, and he will certainly be missed by the city of Detroit and everyone else that knew him and knew his music. Again, Darryl was a phenomenal musician. I love to hear him play. I had several opportunities to hear him play, and his music style influenced my music style as well. I will certainly miss Darryl.
Ray Daniels, God bless you. Listen, thank you for giving me an opportunity to express some words on your tribute to Darryl Houston. All I can say is Darryl Houston was one of a kind. Those who knew Darryl know exactly where I'm coming from. Quick story I wanted to share. I picked Darryl up from the airport one year. As I was picking him up, I was trying to park as close as I could. But, you know, that can be challenging a lot of times. Long story short, I was going back to help him with his luggage, and as he was walking back, I guess it was too long. I remember he looked at me and he said, "Are we walking back to Detroit?" Darryl was one of a kind. He's going to be missed. He's going to be, oh my God, truly missed. Musical genius. Ray Daniels, thank you so much for the opportunity. Glenn, what's up? And I pray for continued strength for the Houston family. God bless.
Sherrod Grant Encarna's Wright speaks on Darryl Houston imparting words of musical wisdom.
Hello everyone, my name is Sherrod Grant, and I had the privilege of meeting Darryl Houston about probably 5 or 6 years ago, and us meeting with each other, it's like the chemistry between us two was, you know, it was something unexplainable. And when you talk about good musicians and, you know, great music, not only in just the gospel arena, but, you know, all different genres, you know, plenty names come to mind, such as Curtis Pearson, David Berry, Dexter Smith, Darryl Houston was also another one that I was able to glean and learn from musically. I had some unanswered questions about music as a whole, and Darryl was the one who was, who always reached out and who always was able to help with those unanswered questions. Not only in the gospel field, but we're talking about a whole different genre as far as classical and anthems and hymns. Darryl most definitely was a musical icon, and he was definitely the one you could go to when it came to properly being articulate and executing music the right way and the way it was supposed to be presented. When it comes to notes and timing, key signatures, reading music, Darryl was just the hands-on person that you could go to know it be done right. And so with this being said, we most definitely here in the city of Detroit and all over the world, we are going to miss world-renowned Darryl Houston. I thank you for the time that we were able to collaborate and glean from each other. Most definitely you will be missed. Thank you. God bless you.
Hello everyone, this is Carnez Wright. I have a great opportunity to speak about the late great Darryl Houston, who unfortunately left this world all of a sudden, maybe a few months ago. But I want to say a few words about this brother. 16 years ago, when I was starting to learn how to play the organ, had a great opportunity to learn the organ over at Ray Daniels' House of Music. And all of a sudden, one of his former students was Darryl Houston. And Darryl Houston was in the other room, I guess the waiting area over there when Ray Daniels' House of Music used to be on Owen and Oakland Street in Detroit, Michigan. And he and Ray were in the other room talking, and Ray was bragging about how I was coming up, and as quickly as I was in the music field. And he told Darryl to check me out, and Darryl came to the organ, and Darryl came over there and he listened to me, and I played, some jazz chords, because, when you're younger and you're trying to learn how to play jazz chords, you ain't really thinking about no songs like that. And so I played, and then he told me to say, okay, now play a hymn. And I looked at him like, I knew what hymns were, and I knew I could, maybe if I knew what to really do, I'd probably play it, but I didn't know how to play it then. And he wasn't mean to me. He just said, you got to learn hymns. You have to learn those hymns, because that's what's going to keep you a job. That's how you're going to be able to keep a job in this music field. And so, great opportunity to, even share with him about some things. And he was very kind to me. He wasn't mean or anything else. It was just great to meet this person that is a well-known, not only organist in the city of Detroit, but a well-known musician throughout the country. And what a joy it was to even meet him 16 years ago. We were very grateful for that encounter that I've had with him, because what he said to me 16 years ago, he and Ray Daniels, what he told me 16 years ago has come to pass. And I say this to a lot of people, that not only should you know hymns, know how to read music, never short yourself just by playing by ear or things of that nature, but know your craft. And that's what he just basically told me, bottom line, in so many words. Know your craft. Because when you know your craft your gift, your gift will make room for you. And so again, I thank you for this great opportunity that I had. I thank God for this great opportunity that I had to meet the great Darryl Houston. May he rest in peace. God bless y'all.
Distinguished and noted musician, Carnez Wright pointed out that Darryl Houston emphatically informed him of the importance of learning gospel hymns. The gospel hymns are very valuable, because knowing how to play them will make you a well-rounded musician, and more marketable as a gospel musician. But most importantly, the messages contained within them were liberating and were based on God's love. Darryl Houston knew this, so he embraced them and enjoyed playing them. Here is Darryl playing, "Oh How I Love Jesus Because He First Loved Me." It is noteworthy that Darryl's music was a reflection of his great love for the Lord. This is one of the reasons why he played them with so much passion and soul. Terry Jackson shares some of his cool working experiences about Darryl Houston.
Hello everyone, my name is Mr. Jackson. I just want to make a few comments about Darryl Houston. He was a great musician, a great traditional musician. We worked together in the 80s at the conservatory. We also used to catch buses sometime before we got our cars. Darryl Houston was somewhat temperamental, but that's the way he, is. But all is well that he's now with the Father and doing well now. And I wish his family the best. Thank you.
Jerry Clark discusses his encounter with Darryl Houston and elaborates on Darryl's professionalism and expertise.
Clark from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And I'm just going to let you know my time in knowing Darryl Houston, it was short. But Darryl Houston was a really nice guy. First time I met him was in Detroit, and he was at the end of a rehearsal. And during the rehearsal, I had a chance to experience his leadership as a minister of music, his leadership as a great pianist, full musician, gospel musician, along with his ability to, train choirs as well, vocally. He was a great guy. After rehearsal, we talked, for a brief moment, and in knowing him, he welcomed me, he embraced me, as a musician, not from the Metro Detroit area, and I'm probably the first gospel jazz organist slash pianist that he met from Canada in general, where he had a chance to really, have great dialogue. But nonetheless, I mean, the guy was great. I respect his craft. I respect what he did. And to all of those who know him around the Metro Detroit area and maybe even around the world, I'm pretty sure he's a patriarch. He will be remembered, and he definitely made a great impression on me. And I hope everyone else enjoys, their fond memories of him. Thank you.
Darryl Houston spent the last part of his life on Earth with a lingering sickness. When Darryl Houston failed to make choir rehearsal, the pastor of the church was curious as to what had happened to him. Without anybody knowing, Darryl had passed away in his home. This was such an unfortunate incident. Nevertheless, Darryl Houston will always be remembered for his music contribution. Darryl Houston had performed on many stages before various audiences, but his heart was on serving people and the Lord. Darryl Houston once stated, "I have always wanted to play for the sick." He may have not fulfilled that wish, but his music was spiritually uplifting to those who heard him, and we will be forever grateful for having been blessed to hear his music and to see him perform. Darryl Houston left a rich legacy of gospel music and servitude to the Lord. So like Darryl, are you using your gift to bless others with? Most importantly, are your talents and gifts of music being used for the upliftment of the body of Christ and for the kingdom's sake? If so, your living is not in vain. Darryl Houston's inspirational organ solo "Is My Living in Vain" sums it all up. "Is My Living in Vain" is a song performed by the Clark sisters. It is full of meaning, and is of great spiritual significance. As Born to Play concludes, concentrate on the lyrics and Darryl Houston's musical interpretation of "Is My Living in Vain?" Like Charles Ashley Craig I, Alfred Bolden, Reverend Charles Nix, and Thomas Whitfield, Darryl Houston will go down in the history of Detroit as one of the greatest organists of Detroit.
He played up a storm, but most importantly with his gift of music he was faithfully committed to serving the Lord. His passionate interpretation of gospel music, and his faithfulness to the church were signs of his love for the Lord.
An essential question to ask yourself is, am I a faithful steward over the gift that God has given me? A tragedy in the church setting today is that musicians have a tendency to treat their church job as a gig for making money, but not as a genuine Christian service. Serving the Lord through your musical gift should not be all about how much money I can get. It should be about giving your all to the Lord and using your God-given gift to give God the glory. Remember, God is our Savior, but He is also our judge. So in the end, we are going to be held accountable for how we use our gifts and talents for or not for the Lord. I don't know about you, but I want to hear the Lord say, "Well done, good and faithful servant."
Jesus, please.